meeting of the Board of Directors for Valley Unified Education Service Center. First, welcome the new board members.
No, we're going to welcome them first, you're right. We do have new board members around the tables, and this is a result of our changing the governance language, moving away from administrative reps to 3 board reps appointed from each board. So we have Gerard Castonguay, who's here for SAD 33. Welcome, Gerard.
Thank you.
We have Jake Terrio, who's representing SAD 27. Welcome, Jake. And then we do have Bev Medor, who could not be here tonight, but Bev will be representing Madawaska School Department. So those are our 3 new board members, and welcome aboard. Aboard.
You're funny tonight.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Bev Medor, absent. Gerard Castonguay.
Present.
Jake Terrio.
Here.
Tammy Cody.
Here.
Josh Desjardins.
Here.
Toby Gendreau.
Here.
Tom Kent.
Here.
Rose McCory.
Here.
And Gary Sibley.
Here.
We have some adjustments to the agenda, Ben.
We have some adjustments, and I put it on your agenda, board members, so you see the adjustments there. We're gonna add an item F under Executive Director, and actually, we're actually not gonna add that under Executive Director. We're gonna have that as a public participation, so ignore that adjustment right there. That will be read during public participation. Add item C under Policy Review. It will be a first read of policy BEDH, which is public participation at board meetings. We're going to add an item D under new business. Current year meeting date adjustment. We have a little hiccup that was picked up by Anne Marie the other day, so we have to adjust for that. And then we have to add an item E under new business, VUESC legal representation.
Okay, we'll go to a period of public participation on items on this agenda. Is there anybody who'd like to speak tonight?
I'll go first. If I go over my time, just let me know. I wrote this letter on behalf of a large group of younger individuals and people with young families, and while I'm reading this, I want everybody to pay attention to the kids in the room, because if we fail at this, it's them that we're failing. A letter from a number of the younger generation and residents with young families from the Valley Unified School area. While we recognize we are not the only age group involved in deciding whether or not this project comes to pass, we feel that our voice and our positive views of this project have been overshadowed by the overwhelming negativity and old school bias from some groups of Valley residents. For us, there are no town lines when it comes to this amazing opportunity. Contrary to the way some people view it, and the way some people from all communities have spread rumors, false information, and disrespected others across social media, this is not about our town, or your town, or their town. It's not about old community rivalries that no longer exist in our generation. As far as we are concerned, we are all one population at this point. This is about the Valley children, and the Valley children of the future having a chance to receive a far better and well-rounded education than we had and our elders had. An education where a student can excel in virtually any area he or she chooses. It's about opportunity. We fully support this project and the project progress made so far. We want to see things continue to move forward. We want this school. That being said, we want to stress that while voter turnout numbers were great, a lot of people of all ages were not able to attend the polls due to work schedules. A lot of community residents work in the woods, and a large number spend their weeks away. People work days and nights at Twin Rivers and also Northern Maine Medical Center. It is unrealistic to assume all people who want to have a vote can make it to a one evening event in the middle of a work week, even if it is just a straw poll. We realize that the vote is final, but in the future, if the Department of Education allows this project to continue, better vote scheduling and or absentee voting could be made available. We feel the Valley Unified Board and all communities involved owe it to the future generations of this area to find a way to work together and do whatever is necessary to ensure this project continues to move forward. An overwhelming yes vote in 2 districts and a dead tie in another, with all surrounding sending communities having a yes majority, is no reason to let this project fail. As for the argument of small business suffering as a result of the site selected, it is unrealistic to think families will up and move just because the school might be 15 minutes down the road. All towns will keep their elementary schools. Wouldn't a family with young children want to stay closest to the elementary school of their town? We all shop and spend money at small businesses all around this valley. It is far-fetched to argue that residents will take their money elsewhere because of the site selected. Where else is there to take it? All businesses in our unified area are vital to each and every one of us. Citizens from every community have supported businesses in neighboring communities forever. We all need each other. Our generation is the future of this area. We are the ones who will fill this school with children and continue to support it long after the naysayers are gone. Yes, people are concerned about taxes and proposed costs, but we are not there yet. So let's put an end to the divisiveness. Let's come together as a whole to make this happen. Everyone should stop viewing this as Frenchville and St. Agatha, Fort Kent and surrounding towns, and Madawaska and St. David, and start seeing the big picture. Divided, we will surely fail. Together, we can do something great for the future of the valley.
Anyone else?
I'm Lisa Bernier. I used to be on this board, and so now that I'm not on this board, I feel that I can speak about the academic successes that have happened in all three districts. So I stand before you to share with you the great academic strides we have made as three Valley Unified Schools. The successes we have made. I've been at this for 36 and a half years. At the end of this year, I'm retiring. In the last 3 years of the leadership of Ben Sirouet, I have seen more progress with curriculum, with how kids are learning, with how we're moving forward, with the whole Valley movement. It's amazing. In my 36 and a half years, in the last 3 years, we have moved further than in my last 33 years before this. It would be so sad to lose this progress. First, curriculum. The work educators in all three districts have accomplished with the help of our curriculum coordinator. We all have access to her. Has been hard. It's been hard work, but rewarding. Unified, we have a curriculum coordinator who offers support to all teachers in all districts. A curriculum coordinator who, together with teachers in all three districts, have created a living, breathing curriculum map to follow when teaching. This means, for those of you who don't know what a curriculum map is, it means that teachers know what they're teaching, when they're teaching it, in all schools in our Valley schools. They know what standards they are responsible to teach, and it's a living map because it's going to be changing and ever growing. Curriculum maps, I used to have them when I was in the classrooms 15 years ago. You know where they sat? On the shelf. Never used them. All three districts use the same reporting system called Empower. This is a program teachers, administrators, parents, and students get to access from home and see what they have missing for work, to see what they have for grades. It's amazing. For the first time this year, I had to use it as a teacher because when I stepped down from being superintendent, I went back to the classroom and I couldn't believe what I was working with that helps me help kids. We've done this in the last 3 years. With the above Empower in place, learners can move ahead at their own pace if they can. To the younger generation that's sitting here, whose kids would see the school. No more, when I was in school, maybe you guys remember this, there was group A, group B, group C. And you were ever stuck in that group. You never moved ahead. If you're lucky, you moved from C to group B. Then, after that, grouping became a no-no. So they taught to the whole group, and the kids that could move along did what they could. The kids that couldn't keep up did what they could. Now, with the work that we've done in 3 years, if your third grader can go to fourth grade curriculum, he can go to fourth grade curriculum. We either accelerate them, that the third grader goes to the fourth grade curriculum and gets it. You can do it that way. If a parent's not comfortable with the child going to the fourth grade classroom, they can be accelerated for the teacher in the classroom. but the living curriculum allows us to do that. For example, in high schools, that's at the elementary. In high school, at the high school, learners can also accelerate to more challenging courses. Now at the high school, at the high school level, we now have an alternative education program for learners at the Technology Center. Those kids who are at risk of dropping out of school, we now have a place to send them. Yes, they had Tops Academy in Fort Kent, but now Frenchville and Madawaska have a place to send those kids who want to drop out of school. And it's been successful the last 3 years. We offer blended learning courses that are courses offered at the high school by either a Madawaska teacher, a Wisdom teacher, or Fort Kent teachers. And all kids in all 3 high schools can access those courses if they want to. Electives. We used to have electives. We don't have enough teachers to teach electives now. So these blended learning courses, our kids can accelerate to those. 8th graders now access the trades program at the Technology Center. The last 3 years, 8th graders now go to the Technology Center. They get to go to the trades, and they get health education and career exploration. Last 3 years. Professional development or workshops that teachers have had has been so enriching and so rewarding because we're doing it as 3 schools unified. All districts have more subs now because of the valley-wide initiative to attract more subs and train people. We never trained sub before, so we did it in MSCD 33. Now we train them all. Why do we need to get the new school if we're doing this great work without the school, you might ask? Because we have only touched the tip of the iceberg. Can you imagine what 3 high school staffs could offer in one building? Can't imagine. We're doing it an amazing job right now without the building. Imagine what we can accomplish with the building. If we keep cutting courses and programs in our current schools due to smaller class sizes, what will our 3 high schools look like in 20 years, 10 years? In 10 years, I might not be here. They will. We are going to rob this generation of a fabulous opportunity. In this comprehensive school, learners can access so many other programs or pathways to reach their goal of entering the workforce. A few examples. Imagine your son or daughter having access to a hair salon in that high school and graduating from that high school, being ready for her own salon. Imagine having a child who's interested in veterinary school. One day a week, your child gets to go to work with the veterinarian who has an office in that school. If your children could access programs such as electrical, plumbing, CDL, heavy equipment operation, and engineering, that's just to name a few. The sky's the limit in my eyes. So many other students could access the vocational courses if you were in one school. There'll be no more traveling. No more traveling. I pledge all younger generation, the young families, I implore you, whose children could access such a school, to contact your board representatives. Board members have been elected to represent all constituents. Don't let one generation rob your children of this amazing building that could continue the great work started in the last 3 years. I encourage you to get together, attend meetings, fight for your children's future. I'd like to end with this. For the first time yesterday at an administrative meeting, school leaders simply felt defeated. That's why this morning I got up and I thought, I have to say something. For the first time yesterday, we felt defeated. To realize that for the first time, we could actually lose this $100 million school for the Valley kids that are here tonight, and so many others out there. To the older generation, my generation, we cannot raise and educate our children the way we were raised and educated. For the world we were raised for does not exist anymore. Their world is going to be completely different from what we were raised for. The only population that can save this project is you guys. Do not let anyone rob your children of this opportunity. Do it for your kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. That was really good what you guys said. You know, moving back about 3 years ago.
Excuse me, what's your name?
Oh, sorry, Andrew Rett from Frenchville. Moving back about 3 years ago wasn't really just moving back because I heard about the school project. I'll go honestly, back 3 years ago, I didn't even know this was going on. I moved back because of circumstance at home and with my farm, so I moved back. But after hearing about this project, it kind of kept me interested. It kind of kept me around because, you know, being in the fire service for about 4 years now, I learned that change and everything following up to that is what makes the department better. So people's lives are saved. I know this is a school, but people's lives get saved because of technology. Now, you give teachers the resources, the tools, the interest of students. You get people together, you have classes. I graduated in a class of 15 kids. I had classes I didn't take. I graduated, I went to a school I didn't think I was gonna like. I ended up loving it. I did 1 year. Never thought I was gonna go to college. Did 1 year of college, and I just, you know what, I'm gonna do 2 years of college. I did 2 years of college, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna try maybe go for 4. I applied for a school that had a very low acceptance rate, and I got in. I wish I had more tools when I was younger, so I can get into that school instead of having to deviate and spend my money, a lot of money, to find out something that I did not like. So I don't know how it would be fair to get a bunch of kids, you know, that can at least get an opportunity to take these classes, at least have the tools that they can have, the teachers can have to be able to educate these kids. Because you can have no population, I hate to say it, but you know, look at the community. We're going down, okay? I just hope that this together, when the students come together and then they have these numbers in these classes that says, you know what, I would like to take more finance classes. I want to take more trades classes. At the end of the day, it's going to make out for them. It's just going to help them out better. You know, I'm not trying to have all this false hope and hopes. It's worth a shot. The money's there. I mean, you got to utilize it. So, thank you.
Anybody else?
Paul Bernier from Frenchville. Everybody knows me, I guess, but it's not a Bernier attack. I had no idea my son was going to talk, and like my wife said, this was a last-minute deal for her. I'm getting tired of this, really, I am. You know, and I'm sure everybody at the table is getting tired of it. I'm trying to understand, okay? And before I get emotional when I talk, so that's it. Ben, you and your staff, including my wife, even though she was called out at a meeting that had nothing to do with this friggin' project, I commend you. Again, I've done it before, I commend you again, and I pray to God that this is not the end of it. Okay? I heard some news yesterday from my wife that just tore me apart. You know, moving away from a district, what's that gonna do to the project? I mean, you don't have to be smart to realize what it's gonna do, okay? It's not a good option. All along, and I bit my tongue on this many meetings, moving forward and moving forward and moving forward, and I'm not digging up the dead, but everybody was getting bullied. Everybody was getting bullied by people outside of Fort Kent. That's what was going on, whether it was Frenchville or Senegat or Madawaska. Everybody was getting bullied. Okay, we had a vote a couple of weeks ago. Fort Kent was a dead tie. Every other vote was unanimous, okay? This group, okay, and it's a small group of well-to-do citizens, they attacked the vulnerable. They attacked the elders. Worst thing the elder wants to hear is your taxes are gonna go up. Let me tell you something, if this project does not fly, and you gotta start dumping money in your high school, your taxes are gonna go up more than what this project would do to your program, okay? I'm sorry, Gary, and I'm sorry, Mr. Jandro, but That's the true fact. You're walking down a dead-end trail, and you're bringing everybody here with you. Why can't we at least give DOE the chance to respond to our submission of votes? We move forward, okay? We move forward. You get the numbers you've been asking for. You get the numbers that you've been anticipating. You get the numbers that you say are gonna raise the taxes and stuff like that. Wait till we get the stuff. Why can't we do that? Because right now, whatever the end result is, if it's not good, people in Fort Kent, not everybody, but there's a whole bunch of them, you're not gonna wanna look in the mirror, and you're gonna feel it. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel.
Anybody else?
I'm Tracy Karen. I'm a resident of Fort Kent. I'm an employee of MSCD 33. I have a large family. I have 4 boys. 2 of them are in the school system right now. The other 2 I hope will be in. I'm their advocate. I'm their voice. And I feel that these kids deserve this. It doesn't matter where the school is. It's for them. If we don't get this, why should I stay here? What do you have to offer me if we're gonna continue to cut and cut and cut? They deserve more. As their mom, as their parent, if we don't get this, and I know I'm not the only one, why should I stay?
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just me. So I'm not gonna take a lot of your time because I do all the talking anyway. But I prepared just a brief statement for the board, and it's not to be preachy to you. But I think it's time that we have this conversation. So I'll read from the paper, and then I'll elaborate if I have to. As we continue down this road towards regionalization efforts, we all need to be mindful that one community is not the same as another. The needs, the wants, and the current state of each community are different. The people will react differently from one community to another. And that's just the reality of it. That being said, we're still one Valley Unified community, even if we may not see eye to eye on every issue. As this board moves forward, we cannot get into the business of one district over another. When board members are with their respective boards, people, that is their business, but when they come here, they're part of this board. So we need to be mindful that everyone here is a volunteer. Some of you were forced volunteers, but you're all volunteers to be part of this movement. So we may question the actions of one board or another. Just be mindful that the representation here is for Valley Unified. So I want to put that out there. While we're here with one board, the Valley Unified Board, we must be mindful of whom each individual board member represents. We must also agree to be respectful even when we disagree. And we will disagree. We're going to disagree all the time. As board members, administrators, and employees of Valley Unified School or its schools, we must be held to a higher standard than others in the community. We must be mindful of what we say at these meetings, because they're all videotaped, so we must be mindful of that. We must be mindful of what we say to people in the community and what we write on social media. And that's not just these board members, it's the employees and the administrators as well. We are being held to a higher standard. Just remember that our words represent thousands of others. In addition to doing what's best for our students and our communities, we must also do what's best for the Valley. This board has an opportunity to do great things for our region, but we will only be successful if we work with one another, understanding that some decisions will take longer than others to reach that point. If this board moves forward trying to force one community over another, it won't work. We're gonna have to work together, and I know you all know that, but I just need to say it as your executive director. I need to say that not all of these decisions are gonna be as easy as the ones in the past. We had a lot of yes and a lot of fast movement in the past 3 years because it was exciting and we had that common vision. But when things start to become real and we start looking at real tangible things and the losses of some things and the gains of some things, that becomes big decision-making time. So we need to trust that this board can do that, being mindful of that. We're gonna have some hard discussions today. We just need to be ready for those and agree to disagree and understand that not everything is gonna be a motion with, ready to move on. We're gonna need time to do some thinking. So please, as the board members, I just ask that of all of you. Thank you, Liz.
All right, approval of minutes.
This is not one of those hard ones. This is actually. I'm just
Yeah,
joking.
hang up on this one, I'm gonna go home.
I was breaking a sweat.
Can I get a motion on the
I move,
approval
I
of?
move.
I'll second it.
You wanna approve both the 11th and the 12th?
Sure.
Yes.
Perfect, and a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? Executive Director, back to you, Ben.
So we all know the result of the straw poll, and we've seen those. The board members, you have a copy actually pasted in your board notes, so that you have those for your record. That's the results. We know that those are part of the evidence, and I'm just gonna roll into the next agenda item because they go together, the next steps. We know that goes into the evidence that goes before the state board, but right now, we don't know when. And trust me, in the past week or so, I've probably answered that 100 people. I don't know when, I don't know when. I was able to finally connect with Scott Brown yesterday and a follow-up conversation today. And he can't tell me when. So there's a lot of unknowns. We do know that there are some steps that need to occur before that does go before the state board. And WBRC outlined what they believe those steps are. Again, this does not come from the State Department. This comes from WBRC based on what they've done with other groups. So they're saying that first, they need to continue to prepare the site selection application. That is actually part of the documentation that goes with it. And then complete any additional reviews by legal counsel and the Department of Education. We have to schedule a meeting with the Department of Education for a site review application. There was a meeting scheduled for Friday at February 10th. Scott Brown told me today that he and Ray were able to connect digitally. We are still invited to go if we want, but he feels that because of some governance piece issues, which I'll get into in a few minutes, he doesn't know that we should be continuing with the regular site selection process stuff until we have conversations with this board and make some decisions about governance. And again, I'll get to that in a second. The appraisals of the 3 parcels have to be conducted. So the way the format for that was, there was an RFP that was put out, and 3 appraisers put in a bid. They selected the 2 lowest appraisers. So those 2 appraisers will be appraising the land, and then they take the blue book, not blue book, but there's a book. They take a value based on those appraisals, and then they come out with the fair appraisal price. So that's supposed to be completed early to mid-April. Complete a review of draft purchase and sale agreement. It's going to be under review by a law firm once we've established that. Then we have to send a draft purchase and sale agreement to the landowners for their review, and the final price will be determined once the appraisals are done. And then the review with Scott Brown at the proposed meeting for the schedule the Board of Education. Again, that can only be done when all of these steps have occurred, because what the State Department looks at is they look at it as an actual purchase based on all of the decisions made by the steps we've taken so far. So that's all I know. Ray from WBRC did give me, he said, I think maybe in May, the May State Board of Education meeting, maybe that will go before them around that time. And he's basing that based on the appraisal time. And that they're gonna need a month to put all that all together. So there is some time for this board to have conversations around governance and some other things before this actually moves into those next steps. Is that fair for everyone? That's what I know, based on the conversations I've had. Any questions about that? All right. I did want to give you an update on the Valley United Concerned Citizens versus Valley Unified Education Service Center. So that's the pending lawsuit against the center. Kate Grossman is our attorney from on this case, and she's been communicating with me on this on a couple of occasions. On February 6th, Kate submitted an entry of appearance. On February 18th, she informed me that she had a conference call with a Mike Carney of SAD 27's legal team and Luke Rossignol to see if they could agree to argue a motion to dismiss first. And so they were able to do so. In the back of your packet, you have that actual motion to dismiss. I did give you a copy of that. That was filed today. I did put one of those in there, right?
Yep.
That's back, okay. So that you have an idea of what is in that motion to dismiss. There's a whole lot of legal stuff that I'm sure Toby knows far better than me, but in a nutshell, Kate's explanation of that was that since there is no legal jurisdiction for education service centers, and the way they conduct their straw polls or the way they conduct their site selection process or any of that, she feels that there is a chance that this can get dismissed based on some other legal some other legal things that have happened in the past. So we'll see if that happens. If that's not accepted by the judge, then we will have to go into the next steps. And I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure that's where we start to defend the actions against us. So I'll report back to you when I know more about that motion to dismiss. With regards to Valley Unified Board governance, I want to remind everyone that when we created the Education Service Center, this was under the administration of, who was the governor? Governor LePage's administration, and the commissioner at that time was Robert Hassan. And a lot of these grants that came up and the creation of the Education Service Center and even the school opportunity were under that administration. Since then, we now have Governor Mills in office. We have a new Commissioner of Education, and the view on the things that one administration did is very different with the new administration, and that happens in government. You have cycles. So when we were working with every board on governance, and we came up with the structure of this governance, the three shared member board, that was fine, and because it was under Title 20, Chapter 123, it all worked. But what we were told at that time was the department was going to work towards being able to have an education service center able to govern a school. Right now you can own a school. There's no problem with that. You have authority to own a school without problem, but you currently, as an education service center, do not have authority to govern a school. And that's because the governance structures for the state of Maine are are outlined. Although they're not specific in law, it is a procedure of the department to only work with these, and so it's very, and actually I take that back, they are in law. Many of them have been repealed since being in law, but these are the governance structures that exist. There's nothing in law that says an ESC can't govern it, but there isn't anything in law that says they can. And it is currently the Attorney General's interpretation of this that an ESC currently cannot operate a school. So the structure we have right now with 3 members from each board would not work under current governance. Now, we've been working, we got wind about this, you know, maybe back in October or so, when they said, we're working on that language, you know, and that was, for us, that was like, yeah, we've always been told we're gonna be working with that language to work that out. And at that time, we had 2 lawyers from Drummond and Woodson working with the State Department. But at one point in time, the Attorney General kind of said, we're not going to really get anywhere unless you start looking at the current governance structures, or we can start to entertain new legislation that may work for your region, but that's going to take a little bit longer time to get that in play. So I reached out to Paula Gravel. Paula is the DOE guru on everything financial and governance. You have an email correspondence in your packet. I wanted to know some specific questions. I wanted to be able to take some specific answers to this board. So I asked her the following questions. I said, I understand that ultimately you want us to go with an RSU because they've told us the RSU is the best way to go, and I'll share with you why. But I want to know what from the board. I want to be able to say why we can't go with the others. So this is what's in statute right now. You can be an RSU, which is a regional school unit. You can be an SAD, which is what SAD 27 is. SAD 33 is actually an RSU SAD, so they're actually both. There's really no difference. The only thing is SAD is now repealed in law, so all new communities that join together, they form RSUs. But essentially the law is about the same thing, so those are one and the same. They in the past had CSDs, which were community school districts. Again, that was repealed from law. The ability to form a new one was repealed from law. There were AOSs, and I believe we were part of an AOS in 27 with Allagash at one time. But that is not to govern a school. That's similar to what we have here in the Education Service Center. It's just for shared governance. It's for shared services. It's a lot more strict, though, than what we have here. So that's not something we would want at all. A municipal school unit, that's something that Madawaska is, where they are a municipality of the town, and they're of that town, so we could not be that as a shared entity. And then they have union towns, and again, that ability to form, that was repealed in law. So based on all of those, essentially our only option is a regional school unit if we were to go with the current governance structure. We have been honest with the DOE that an RSU does not match what we were told could be done with an ESC. And again, that interpretation now is different, that we're working with a new administration. However, the State Department did say that they would be willing to work on legislation for the current RSU law that would not impact our current elementary levels, because we've said that that's off the table. We do not want to touch anything with our elementaries. We want 33 to retain control of their elementary, 27 theirs in Madawaska. So they understand that. So that would be something that they could work with. So we'd be looking at a 7 through 12 governance structure under an RSU. It's not currently in law, but they feel that that's something that's easily adjustable, because there may be other entities like us that would want to take advantage of that if they're making a regional high school. And then work within some other flexibilities based on the conversation that we have as a board here on some of the things that we would be in favor of entertaining and things that we would not be in favor of entertaining. So Paula's going to work on some draft language. She had already begun to do so, and I'll be able to share that with you hopefully next time we meet about what that would look like as an RSU. One of the advantages from a financial standpoint, and Lucy can attest to that, if we were to entertain an RSU format for this regional high school, we would get our own ED 279. So it would be a separate funding stream, separate from 33, Madawaska, and 27. So the argument about how one's budget impacts the elementary schools if it doesn't pass, that would be off the table. We would have our own ED 279, we would have our own referendum vote just for the high school versus our votes for the elementary schools. So that would be a lot more cleaner, whereas now we have to appropriate funds, you know, back down to the individual SADs, and so that's what I know right now with governance. I do know that when I got off the phone with Scott Brown today, he said the Attorney General, and he apologizes to some of the board members around the room. The Attorney General has been very lockstep on him furthering any projects or giving information on projects until this board at least acknowledges that the governance structure is an issue in the AG's eyes. It's a major problem, and we're going to have to look to resolve it. If we say no, we're not willing to, and just stay the course, at least it's not going to go well for the project. The governance piece is a big thing in the AG's eyes, and she wants to see that we're making our best effort to at least examine other formats, look at what the State Department can do with regards to new legislation, and then move forward accordingly. One thing that I think might be the best way, and this is just me thinking from a big picture point of view, is that if this board were to entertain that kind of thing and we work with the department and we figure out something that works for all of us, we would wrap the RSU vote into the regional high school vote. So you're voting on one big package. You're not voting on, do you want to move to an RSU, yes or no? Do you want a regional high school, yes or no? Because the danger there would be our locals might vote for one but not the other, and then we'd be like, okay, now what do we do? But if we wrap it all together, when we get there, I think people would be more mindful of, not only does this create the opportunity for the regional high school, but it also creates a new governance structure, which at that time I would say to all of you, let's call the RSU, if that's what we do, the new ESC. That way we don't have another board that we are adding to it, because I love you all, but another board meeting a month would be too much. So that's a lot to process right now, but it is a concern. It is something that we hoped would have gotten resolved through the communications that we thought were going to be able to happen in what we were told years ago when we formed all this. But I think the DOE and the Attorney General's connection to the governor and how the administration has a different focus, I think it's not in our favor to lock in our heels and say, well, no, you promised us the ESC would be able to do nothing. They never promised us anything, but we did have a different governor in office then than we do now. So it becomes a little more complicated. So that's what I have on governance. I wanted to just open that door to all of you. Our job now is to start to investigate, you know, which structures would be the best for us. Talk to each individual board about what are some things you're willing to acknowledge in this new governance structure. What's something that you can't acknowledge? The way I understand RSUs is it does have to be representative of the population of communities, not the population of SADs. So the population of communities. So I think, and I'm not positive about that, but I think currently under RSU law is you have to have representation from each municipality in your RSU based on the size of your municipality. So whereas right now you have 3 board members from SAD 27, they don't represent all of the communities of SAD 27. That would have to change in the current structure. Does that make sense? So, and again, I don't know if that's something that they can work with new language. This is all very new to me as well. But I want to do my best to make sure that we are having productive conversations about this. I will throw it out there that governance piece is one huge concern for some member communities right now. And I think you've been listening to that as much as I have, that is one piece of concern. This is not, I don't believe this is because of that concern. I do believe, though, that the Attorney General wants to honor what is in statute versus what isn't in statute, so.
So you said something, and I'd like you to either repeat it or explain it, or both.
Sure.
If we were to change our governance into an RSU type situation,
Right.
you said we wouldn't have 2 votes, we'd have 1 vote. What do you mean?
I was saying, well, because you have to have voter approval in order to form an RSU. That's something
Okay.
that's something you can decide, we can decide, you know, to support it, and then it moves forward to referendum. But when that goes to referendum, my advice at that point in time, and I don't even know legally that can be done, but my advice would be to make the RSU creation one and the same with the regional high school. So you're voting for the regional RSU and Valley Unified Regional High School to be a package deal in what the public is accepting. Because if you separate them, and the people say yes to the high school but no to the RSU,
We can't go.
then you've got a school that you can't run. And that would be a big whoops. Or, in reverse, they say no to the school but yes to the RSU. Now you have all the communities making decisions for Fort Kent Community High School, for Wisdom Middle High School, and for Madawaska High School, which you don't want. So we're gonna have to really work carefully on how that all looks. And again, that's just me thinking big picture. The lawyers might tell me, well, no, you have to do it this way. I don't know yet. What I can do is provide you all, it's on the State Department website, I can provide you a list of all the school districts in Maine and which school districts fall in RSU categories, which fall in SADs, just so you can get a sense of which communities have done this and which have not. It'll give you a better sense of if this is working or not for communities. And I think you'll see when we go to the department website, most of the school districts are either RSUs now or they're municipalities, like Madawaska would be. So, more to come on that.
Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
We have administrative reports now.
Sharon, Peter, any of you, do you have anything to say?
Well, thank you, Lisa, for the nice comments about curriculum work that we've done. So we've been finalizing a lot of the work. All schools are using our learning management system. We're in the process, Anne Marie Durrett, the technology director, is in the process of working through the transcript, mostly for Fort Kent Community High School right now, or Community High School right now, because they're the first ones that are going to be pushing that out. And our next phase is to do some alignment. So basically, when I say alignment, all 3 schools, elementary all the way up to high school, are working on the same standards in the same course. So if I am in community high school and I'm in a biology class, I can rest assured that the same standards are being covered in a Madawaska biology class as well as a biology class in 33. So that there's equity in the education in regards to what is being taught in all of the schools. So the next phase of this work is to look at our assessments and say, if I'm giving a student proficiency scores, is the rigor or the depth of knowledge being addressed in the assessment that I'm looking at, so that we also have some consistency and continuity in how we're scoring our students, so that if a student is coming from Madawaska or from Fort Kent, that the same criteria are needed for success in that class. And so the work moving forward is getting some alignment, doing some calibration of our assessments to make sure that they're meeting those particular standards. Again, everyone, the collaborative nature among all the teachers has been mind-blowing to me. Everyone is working together. We have great conversations. We can agree to disagree, and we find solutions. No one is dictating one piece over the other. It's just been a really amazing experience working with all the teachers. They appreciate the time to collaborate with each other because a lot of times they feel as though they live on an island because they may be the only math teacher or they may be the only science teacher. So now they get to talk to other professionals that do and deal with the same thing. So that's been a great experience for me as well. So I'm loving my job. I find it challenging every day, and I'm seeing the progress and the hard work that everyone is putting forth. And I'm very proud of the teachers and the administrators within the school to be so supportive of the work that we've done moving forward. And I look forward to progress, I think, because this is an amazing school to work for and district. So thank you, Ben. I just want to say that.
Peter, did you want to thank me too?
Yeah.
No, just joking.
Thank you for the 1 minute. You gave everyone else 3.
One thing that I wanted to ask this board, and I think I've pressed upon very strongly to Scott Brown today that his team and the department needs to support us despite pressures that they might have. My understanding of all this was a partnership between us and the Department of Education. So when I spoke to him today, I pressed upon the fact that he needs to be supportive, he and his team need to be supportive, the commissioner needs to be supportive, and although there's going to be times where they're going to have to tell us no or at least things are not working out right, they cannot be tuning us out. And I think there's been a little bit of that based on pressures, and I don't know the political play there, but Scott did acknowledge that. So I wanted to ask you all, do you think if I could make it happen, and I think right now, you know, we have the attention, again, of the department, if I could make it happen, would it be beneficial to have the commissioner and Scott Brown come to the area and meet separately with each individual board to hear their concerns? I mean, we could do it at the Valley Unified level, but I think we would have probably more constructive conversations around what the needs are of each board. Is that something you want me to work on to try to do it? It might not happen in the next 2-3 weeks, but if I can get it to happen, you know, in the near future, is that something you want me to work on?
I think it would be very beneficial.
We'll know we have a lot of pull if we can get the commissioner to come back here. So, but I want to at least ask, and I thought about that today. If I think what I heard today was we're going to be supportive, and I think I can get this asked. And if maybe the commissioner can't, maybe I can get Scott Brown here at least and his team. But I'm hopeful. I know we've spoken with Pender quite a bit. She's rooting for this. She really is. The department is. So I think if we can get them here, I think that would be a benefit. So I will work on that and see if I can get that done, and see where that falls.
Do you need a motion on that?
You don't need. No. I'm going to do it.
Okay.
We got items of business.
Under items of business, we have policy review. You have policy BDD. Again, trying to build our B policies. These are, this one here is specific to board superintendent relationship. You can see in the lightish greenish blue color those things that I added or edited to the boilerplate. Management of the service center, and so we had to add that in because this is the service center. Executive director was added in several places after the word superintendent. If you want to just give that a quick read over.
Policy committee for this, okay. Do we have to meet in person for the chair policy before we come to a meeting? We have policy. I mean, we're making this up. Just a quick proofread, so we can do it right for the first reading.
We got a week to go.
I'll be dead by the time we get to see you.
So Toby had a good suggestion, and perhaps the board agrees, maybe because we're building policies, so it's not like we're reviewing and modifying, we're just building from scratch. So these are coming off boilerplates, and I'm making those adjustments. How about for the future of first reads, I can share out with you electronically, and then, you know, get your stamp of approval through email, because you're only gonna take motions on these on second reads anyway. So we're not conducting business by doing that, you're just getting that preview. That way, when we come to the board with it, it's that second read, you've already seen it, and that way we can go to approvals. Would that work for the board?
Sure.
Okay, so at your own leisure, read those. I will tell you that the last one, BEDH, public participation at board meetings, this is based on new legislation that passed this summer, and I will be, Giselle and I will be taking these to all the boards. It was taken to the SAB 27 board last meeting, it's going to the Madawaska board on Monday, and it's gonna be going to the 33 board the following Monday. And that's just because there's new regulations around participation at public meetings, where we really can't limit people to just the items on the agenda, and it really becomes the discretion of the chairman to entertain how long people talk. You'll notice Mr. Gendreau let the public speak as long as they want today. In the past, that might have been like a 3-minute rule or a 5-minute rule. You know, you gauge the audience and you make a judgment based on that. So those will be going to each board for you to take a look at.
We made a recommendation.
Yep, and it's in this one.
So we're gonna strike the sizable audience. Sorry.
Yeah, we're not doing it in the event of a sizable audience.
We'll make it what we're talking about is on page 2 of BEDH.
Yeah, item C.
Item C, there's something that says in the event of a sizable audience. The SAD 27 board, when we met, we had a discussion about just having it start with, at his or her discretion, the chair may require persons interested in speaking to sign up. Only because a sizable audience is a relative thing, and if it looks like if we got a lot on our calendar and we know we have a lot to do, it may be that 4 people talking, we wanna limit it to 3 minutes, whereas if we get a really short one, we may wanna just let it go. So,
And then at the end, I did add it here. We had discussions, and that was actually a recommendation from Jake. Anyone desiring additional information or who has a question about an agenda item can direct such inquiries to the office of the superintendent or email them directly to the superintendent. It's a good way to get those questions answered in advance, because sometimes people will read the agenda, have that question, they should be, you know, reaching out right away. They don't have to wait for a meeting to, you know, come ask it.
Thank you. New business.
So, in your packet, you have a draft copy of the proposed meeting dates for next year. Very similar format to our current year, where we're meeting every other month for the fall and early winter. And then when we hit our workshops, our budget workshops, we're meeting more frequently. Currently, our interlocal agreement says we shall adopt a budget by, I believe it says March 16. So you want to have that third read ahead of March 16, and then write it out. So I would propose that we stick with that format if it has been working. We also have alternating sites for the meetings. I would like to propose that that's what we go with.
You need a motion then?
I would. Oh, you'll notice that every meeting's on a Monday. Every meeting's on a Monday, so no more of this Tuesday, Wednesday business, which is awesome.
I'll make a motion that we approve the MSC, the meeting dates for 2020-21.
Second. Thank you. Ms. Joshua. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
One of the reasons we were able to do this, and I will be proposing it to all the boards, is we're going on a six-week rotation with the regular board meeting dates. That frees up Mondays, so every board meeting for every SED and this board is gonna be Monday meetings, which is wonderful. So, yay. If we all agree. Under new business, item B, we're going to have to make a determination about the phase 2 engineering. As we get near the end of phase 1, and again, as I spoke a while ago, I don't know when that is. The phase actually ends when the state board either approves or does not approve of the site selection. But at that point in time, assuming that we're working on the governance piece and the commissioner is happy with our efforts to attack that governance piece, we should get the green light to proceed, if all goes well, with phase 2 engineering. And phase 2 is specific to concept design and the educational programming of that facility. We currently have a contract with WBRC for phase 1 only. We did that specifically in case we wanted to make a switch midway into that second phase. Right now, WBRC feels that they have phase 2, but I wanted to bring it to this board, have conversations about, do we feel comfortable moving forward with WBRC in phase 2, or are there concerns based on phase 1? I will say, and I've spoken to a couple of board members who have some expertise in this area. I think WBRC is best suited for phase 2. I don't know who would have succeeded 100% with phase 1, given our really challenging task. And WBRC is partnering with the Cunningham Group. We had a chance, the 4 of us had a chance to go visit some amazing schools that the Cunningham Group has built in Wyoming. That was a wonderful trip. In Wyoming, beautiful, beautiful buildings, really appropriate programming to the design of the building. And I think WBRC connected with the Cunningham Group prior to submitting the bid for our project, because the Cunningham Group understands rural schools, because that's where they're building schools, out in Wyoming and in those rural areas. I'm not advocating for WBRC, but I would be remiss if I didn't say I think the rest of the project, if given to them, is going to be better. It's going to be better. But I want to leave it up to the board on your thoughts. We can go back out to RFP if you so choose. We can go back to the original firms that we interviewed, some of us here interviewed, and go based on that. I think we have the freedom to do what we choose at this point, at the guidance of the board.
I'd like to see or know more about the Cunningham Group. This is the first time I've heard of this entity.
Yep.
And so I'd be curious to know about who they are and what they've done.
Yep.
I appreciate your feedback, but I'd like to know more.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have some links we can send to the board, and you can see their work. Absolutely. What are some other thoughts?
I'm not in favor of changing horses in the middle of the stream. So, my vote would be to continue with them.
We don't have to make this decision tonight, unless you want to. But the sooner I tell WBRC, the better it will be.
When's their next meeting?
Our next meeting is, we're meeting on March 11, which,
It's a week.
2 weeks, right?
Not quite.
Yeah, not quite. We had to meet that deadline for the 3rd budget hearing, so we do have a March 11 meeting.
Okay.
I would be in favor of moving with WRC as well as Tom.
So would I.
I don't see any reason to procrastinate and wait. They have the credentials, so I'd make a motion we continue with WBRC.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I think this is typical of what we've done, moving too fast on something. I mean, you've heard Jake want to review. Let me finish, please.
Okay.
You heard Jake ask to be able to review the Cunningham group, learn something about it before you make a decision. We need to make educated decisions. It's not gonna kill us to wait 2 more weeks and be respectful of his wishes.
Here we go.
Tom, you were the one at the last meeting that said, I wanna work with you guys.
I
This
do
is-
want to work with you, Gary.
This is part of working with us then. Respect his wish just to take 2 weeks to learn more about the Cunningham group. Is that gonna set anything back?
I don't believe so. We have a May timeline now, possibly of when the state board's gonna see that. So I don't believe so. I do have the original RFPs that I could share that has the Cunningham group stuff in it, just so we can refresh our memories about, you know, what their work was. And then we do have some online videos, if we need time to just look at those.
I would be interested in looking at, like, the links you have, though, to see the schools.
Yep.
But I don't mind WBRC, but I'd like to see
We'd
those
even share our
schools.
own photos that we took when we visited. We took a whole set of photos, so I can share that all out with the board, just so you can see some of the work.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Apologize.
So in the interim, we're going to, do we need a motion to review the Cunningham stuff, or do we just?
No,
You send it out?
I'll
Okay.
send it out, and I'll
Okay.
add this to old business next meeting.
Thank you.
We're on new business, C.
Okay, yeah.
So, I did want to start having conversations about things that have come to light that may be concerning with regards to the interlocal agreement. And I think I prefaced this with you guys before in another meeting. And the one I have here is budget approval discussions. I gave you a printout of page 8 of our ILA so that you can see it. And currently, you can see the language in item B there that talks about how the budget is developed and how it comes to be. But if you look at that last paragraph under item B, in the event of a board of directors fails to approve an annual budget by March 15, the executive director shall call an emergency meeting no later than March 31st, at which the annual budget must be approved. If the annual budget for the regional service center is not approved by March 31st, the latest budget approved by the board of directors shall automatically consider the operating budget for the ensuing fiscal year. That's great, but we don't have any language that talks about what happens if an SAD 27 vote goes south, or what happens if an SAD 33 vote is defeated, or a Madawaska vote is defeated. And there's no conversations about coming back to this board to talk about their portion of the budget. Right now, it's not a big deal. Lucy's gonna present the budget to you in a few minutes here at the end of this meeting. Very similar to last year's budget, where you're just talking about the salary of 4 or 5 individuals and some operating costs for those offices. So it's not a huge budget right now, but in the event that we do have a regional high school and you have millions in that budget and a local budget is defeated, now the RSU thing might help solve that problem at that time, so that might be null and void. But in the meantime, we may want to have conversations around a safety net in the event that a budget is defeated. And I don't even know how that complicates things. If 2 entities pass their budget, a third one doesn't, now you have adopted budgets in 2. And I don't know, I don't know, but I think we need to talk about it, and I think we need to acknowledge that that's a problem. I have no solutions for you, but I wanna just have those conversations.
Ben, if I may.
Yes.
I would imagine that if we don't get the 3 votes for this budget, we would do the same as we would in SAD, which is you run on 1/12 of your budget per month, and that's it. You don't go beyond your previous budget 1/12 per month. So you're limiting
what you're spending as you move forward until it's completely adopted.
Okay.
Suggestion, we've had to do that.
Does everybody understand what Giselle means by that?
Yeah, but I think you would have to reopen the VUESC budget, because they've got a new budget at that point. Right, you're talking, having to do that at the VUESC level, whereas at the local level, that line in their budget is already approved.
The local may adjust, the local whose budget is not approved may adjust their local share, but not the VU share.
That's right, yeah, and that's an issue, because it could be a significant piece that they might wanna touch, but they can't because it's already approved. I don't know that you would run on a 1/12 budget, because you have an approved budget at the VUSC level. You might just do it as a
I think,
favor.
I think it's RSU language, for budgets that don't pass.
Yep.
So I'm just suggesting that it could maybe work, or an amendment to that, but we do need to figure out. And typically, you just don't spend more than your previous year, and you allot it in 12s, because if you can.
Right. And just for the purpose of this board, we've asked if this governance could receive their own ED 279, even as early as now, so that we would have our own approval process, and it's, again, that's another thing that's not in law, not in statute. And when you look at chapter 123, it wasn't designed that way. So the solution that, you know, could happen where we have our own money coming from the state and we work just within that, that's not part of the solution. I think maybe the RSU language, when we start investigating that, might solve that problem. But I did want to highlight that right now, not a major issue because we're not operating a school. But in the future, when we're operating a school, this is going to be something that's going to be a real problem if we don't resolve it sooner than later. And I'm willing to, you know, work with whomever in the State Department on some solutions to this, or legal teams. But I wanted to bring it to this board as something that I acknowledge is a problem. Again, I bring no solutions, just problems to you.
And and this is something that I think came up at one of our last meetings, that we talked about it at Frenchville. And I don't know, maybe we should be talking about the RSU process sooner rather than later.
Right.
I mean, because this is a patch. If we do this is a patch. And I don't know how good a patch it's gonna be.
Right.
And that's what concerns me. If Frenchville's budget fails,
Which it won't, it never does.
never done. Let's go with that, or let's go with Fort Kent. 'Cause we all, both those communities excel at failing budgets. Let's say our budget fails in Fort Kent, or SAD 27. You know, it puts us in a bind.
Yeah.
And I don't know, even if we go back to this board, it would require a 7/9 vote to.
Right.
So it would render the one that was passed null and void? Is that what you're thinking? If one of the member communities says, no, our budget doesn't pass, does it retroactively nullify the one that we voted on as a board?
My first initial concept was having a safety net that you default back to the previous year's budget at that time, but I don't even know we can do that. I don't know. Because if other groups have adopted it, they've adopted that new amount. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
really-
Yeah.
Let's just have all budgets passed in every community from now on.
We tried that.
Sure. This is for.
This is an RSU,
Okay.
which says in law that you can adopt or,
You're a better reader than me.
I'm gonna just paraphrase the part, but, when a budget fails, this is failure to pass a budget, 1487 of Title 20A. The regional school unit under this law, will use the latest budget submitted by the regional school unit board becomes the operating budget for the next year until a budget is approved at a regional school unit budget meeting and validated at referendum. So you use last year's budget, and it doesn't say 1/12, but that's kinda like operational, that you
Yeah.
wouldn't wanna overspend, so.
What section is that?
1487,
But that's at the local.
chapter 103. the local budget would already have a sum from previous years for Valley Unified. There's an allotment in our local budgets right now for Valley Unified.
But I think that's an assessment line. It's not a budget in itself. That one line is an assessment line in the local budget. So I don't think that a failure at the local budget level, I don't think you can touch that assessment line until the Valley Unified budget is either amended or changed. I think once it's adopted, right now, there's no avenue to have that assessment line changed in the event that a local budget fails.
Right, if any of the three SAUs would wanna come back to the Valley Unified
Right.
Board to change the budget, they would have that option. They would need to have that option.
They would need to have that option.
But it may not be necessary, I guess, was my point of view, because it may not be that part of the budget that's causing a failed referendum or.
Correct.
So it could be, you're purchasing 3 buses, we don't want 3 buses. So a local may make adjustments elsewhere in their budget, not necessarily in VU, but if it is VU, it does have to come back
It would
and
have
be
to come back
adjusted.
to the board for approval.
And the worst thing we would want it to happen is things come back to this board and we don't agree, and now a local is forced to cut in what they have, which is your pre-K to 6 education at that point. And we just don't want that to happen. So, yeah, I think looking at language and of other structures, I can ask, you know, once we decide, legal counsel, I can ask, you know, if this is something that they can look over and give us suggestions in the short term. But again, it's I think it's something we need to keep on our radar. Okay. Next item is something we added, current year meeting dates adjustment. You have another slate of meetings. This is this year. You'll notice that the last one, Tuesday, May 26th, that's actually the same date as the public hearing in SED 33 for the budget. I would have loved to miss one or the other, but I think I have to be at both. So I'm proposing that we move that to Monday, June 15. We currently do not have any SAUs with a meeting on Monday, June 15. It's Monday, those are our meeting dates anyway, so I'm looking to see if you'll be okay with that. And I would take that in the form of a motion.
I move to accept that.
Second.
Any discussion? The motion was Joshua, the second was Gary. And I looked at his name tag. Both of them. Any discussion? All in favor? Passed.
So you know that Valley Unified currently has legal representation for the pending litigation against Valley Unified. Let me just bring this up here. And the firm we are currently using is Farrell, Rosenblatt, and Russell. And so the reason we had to go with this firm was that we did not have informed consent any longer to represent the 3 boards under one umbrella. We currently do not have conformed consent to continue with the same legal counsel for any Valley Unified business, and that's because right now SED 27 is working hard with their law firm to make sure that the needs of what those communities are saying to their board members are being met. So in speaking, you know, and when I mentioned this to Kate today, she said, I actually chuckled when I saw your email because I was wondering how long that would take. Because when things start to, you know, when you start to have not the same interests, or at least interests that need to be worked out, you want different eyes on everyone's aspect of things. So what I am proposing tonight, and I still have not received confirmation from Kate. She wanted to check with her colleagues, but I would propose that since we're already working with Farrell, Rosenblatt, and Russell on the litigation, I would move to work with them on all Valley Unified specific items representing just those interests of Valley Unified themselves. That being in mind, we realize that now we've added a layer to things, so that would have to kick around between, so let's say we'd make an adjustment to the interlocal agreement, or we would propose an adjustment to the interlocal agreement. That would no longer just be certified by Drummond and Woodson, and we're good to go. Now Drummond and Woodson would look at it for Madawaska and 33. Kate would look at it for Valley Unified, and then SED 27's attorneys would look at it for SED 27, and we'd all have to agree in order to move forward with things. I think I said that right, but it just adds another another layer to it. But we need representation as a board here, and we currently cannot use. I did speak with Drummond and Woodson again today just to verify. They said we possibly could use them if it does not have a conflicting nature to one board or the other. And I said, you know, realistically, let's just agree that that's probably not going to work. So they understood, and they see that that's probably not going to be a reality. Madawaska and 33 are going to continue with, you know, Drummond and Woodson for their representation on daily business, but we need to have somebody here for this board. So my recommendation, if the firm accepts, is to go with Farrell, Rosenblatt, and Russell.
Your motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Any discussion?
Ben, what kind of price tag is this coming with?
I don't know yet. I don't know. I do know that, honestly, the highest paid lawyers in the state are going to be Drummond and Woodson lawyers. And that's just because they are the best, or they're most renowned for this kind of work. I don't know that the savings come in the shared costs. So if you have one firm representing 3 or 4 entities, you share out those costs. So the savings are in that. As far as individual representation, you're going to pay a little bit more when you have that. And that's, you know, luckily we budget for legal fees. Next year, in speaking with Lucy and Giselle, we've upped our legal fees in the budget just because we know we have a lot to iron out. So you will see an increase in legal fees for this board for next school year until we.
And we can't have the best one?
What's that?
We can't use Drummond and Woodson
We can't as Valley Unified unless we would have informed consent from all 3 boards, which we currently do not have.
It's kind of unfortunate that we have to go second
So
best.
but when did that happen?
That happened during the last board meeting of SED 27. The board felt it was their best interest to not have that informed consent. They want another set of eyes looking at agreements moving forward. When you have one person looking at the interests of 3 or 4 entities from a 30-foot position and not knowing the politics involved, sometimes you just want to have those extra eyes looking at that, and that's what that board felt would be best for them at this time.
Any other discussion? We have a motion on the table. All those in favor? Opposed?
How do I do with politically correctness in that?
Yep.
So we're gonna move to our budget hearing number 2, the first read of the budget. And I'm gonna turn things over to Lucy.
Yes, thank you.
I'm gonna hand out those.
everyone, while you're receiving those handouts, I sent you the WBRC request for qualifications, and there is quite a bit of information about the Cunningham Group and its qualifications and some of its projects in there. That's a 110-page document. Just scroll through until you find Cunningham Group, and it'll be right there at the heading. And I also sent you the Pathways Innovation Center video. That features Pathways Innovation Center staff, as well as Cunningham Group professionals, and even students talking about that project and that school. So, and on that page where you'll find that video, there's additional information about the Cunningham Group and some of its other projects, additional video.
I didn't get that.
Thanks, Sorry? Peter.
I didn't get it.
Thank you, Peter.
It just came in mine.
I just sent it. Did you get it, Tony?
I just got it.
Okay, so it's just going through. So you should all receive it in
Got it?
short order.
It buzzed.
Okay, what I've given you is the first, you get two short, the stapled is a summary of the budget and the proposed budget. And this, smaller sheet, those are the details that, make up some of the lines, in case you wanna refer to what is in that one. So we'll start with the one with the yellow for the assessments, called the URC Assessment 2021. What I did is I updated the cost share percentages, so they're based on 50% based on student average attending student, and 50% based on the valuations. And those numbers come from the ED 279 reports, which we received a week or two ago. And the percentages have barely changed. So MSAD 27 still will be responsible for 51% of the costs. MSAD 33 will be at 15.1%, and MSD will be at 33.9%. So there's a slight shift of 0.1% between Madawaska and 33. The next sheet is, if you want to compare to last year, what the figures look like. Oh, I guess MSAD 27 did go down to 1 to 56, 15 to... Yeah, I'm sorry. Madawaska did increase by.
More than
I'm
0.1.
looking- Yeah, I'm looking at more than, too many numbers today. The large sheet, and I apologize for the size of it, but I wanted to make sure you could read it. Because when you put it all in one sheet, the numbers are pretty small. The first column, the columns are numbered. So the column number 1 is the current year 2019-20 budget. The second column is the proposed budget for next year. And the third, I guess the numbers don't really match. The third one in place, called difference, that's the increase or decrease if it's in brackets to this current year's budget. So in the Board of Education section, we had budgeted, the big difference there is the legal services. We had budgeted $5,000 for this year. We don't think that's going to be enough for next year. We really don't know. It's a complete guessing. So we increased by $20,000. That is, as we go in the next couple of weeks, if we get better numbers from the firms, we can adjust that. That's our best guess.
One thing that we had in the past that we no longer have is grant funds to cover legal expenses. We had that in the first Embrace grant, we had that in the first FEDA's grant, so those are now gone. So we really have to budget accordingly for changes we make to documents.
So that first section in the budget covers your school board stipends for attending meetings, the benefits that go with that, legal services, cost of an audit, which is usually part of, this year was part of the SAD 27 audit, but next year we have to have our own independent audit because we're now running an independent organization. Insurance, because we're dealing as a board level as well, you have to have separate insurance for the VUSC level, even if you're already covered under your respective districts. You're acting in a different capacity when you're at this board level, so you have to have your own liability insurance. And then some of the fees that go with having a board and the establishment of it. So the dues and fees are the board association and miscellaneous.
there's always the unknown. The executive administration covers the 3 salaries of Ben, Giselle, and Peter, and their respective costs for travel, professional development, tuition, anything to do with their respective dues and fees as superintendents and assistant superintendents. I did increase the conference and workshop fees and the telephone, the travel room and board. What we hadn't included in this first year was the opportunity to attend conferences such as MSMA or ASCD and whatnot. So I did increase those fees. And the dues and fees are pertaining to either the conference or their respective associations as superintendents and assistant superintendents. Central services covers my salary, my health insurance, and whatnot, and my specific charges for telephone, travel, conferences, attendance, if any, dues and fees of my association, and miscellaneous expenditures of running basically a small central office for Valley Unified. The office that we run with the with SAD 27 still maintains, but there's a portion of it that when it pertains to Valley Unified business, I have to charge it to this section of our budgets. We have included a modest increase in salaries. We've included a 10% increase in health insurance in anticipation that it will increase. We won't know those figures probably in time for the Valley Unified budget. We typically know them early March, mid-March, but I don't know if we'll know it in time. I always have a placeholder in case of an increase. We've had an increase in the past several years in a couple of the districts, and I anticipate we may still. That's mainly that section. Vehicle operation maintenance, that first one is for the Valley Unified vans, in the event that we need parts and services for any of the 3 vans. Student transportation piece is the transit bus, in the event that we need parts and services for that. And the second and the last section at the bottom is food services and operation. That's for Melanie, our food service director, and her health benefits and her attends at conference workshops and telephone and dues and fees. This year, the Department of Education has changed how it is reimbursing us for the executive director's salary and benefits. They're still funding us at 55% of the executive director, however, they're using a state average. They're not using the actual cost of our.
And state average is not a state average. They're using a state average of full-time and part-time superintendents. So they're not using a true state average, which I had a hard time swallow, because when I asked for, can you give me the average range, it ranged from $1,400 to $170,000, and they take an average of everything in the middle. So it's not really truly an average. It's an average of anyone who calls themselves a superintendent, even for 5 minutes of their work week.
I feel like it's not a frequently volunteer
Right.
position.
One of the increases that you may notice is in the central services. There's a $5,800 increase there. What that is mainly from the financial software that we're using. We're using a module, an extra module than what we had initially anticipated. So there will be an extra cost, but those costs for the software and the financial software, the Department of Education will reimburse us for actual costs, but they'll do it. In this case, they'll look at it at the end of the year, what did we spend, and we'll get it as part of next year's funding for 21-22. We're not gonna get it in time for this budget. It'll be like 2 years behind.
Which line items are those?
These are under technology related software under central services, the 2,500 section.
Is that the only one that's gonna be reimbursed?
No, there's 2 sections. Yeah, pretty much. There's professional services. I've got one under purchase professional and technical services. That's the financial software. It's the $21,375 estimate. And the other one is a $35,000 under technology related software. That's our Time Clock Plus.
And that should be part of the reimbursement, so, well, they will reimburse us what they've tentatively funded. Right now, they're reimbursing us at $48,734. They're supposed to give us the difference of that in the following budget.
Is this a yearly fee that we get assessed?
Yes.
So is this spread across, this is me understanding how this budget's gonna work. This budget is gonna be spread across all the different SADs in Madawaska, correct?
Yes, as per the percent on the first sheet that we looked at.
So money in and money out is according to the cost share. So
Right.
it's applied both ways.
Okay.
So for this preliminary budget, which we still have time to adjust, if you follow through to the very right-hand 3 columns in pink, MSCD 27, at the very bottom, there's a blue border. MSCD 27 would be contributing $291,450. That's a $30,000 increase from prior year. Most of that is the legal fees, the anticipated legal fees, and the increase in their salary and health benefits. MSAD 33 would be contributing $86,327, an increase of about $8,600. And Madawaska would be contributing $193,358, an increase of about $19,000. That's our first look, preliminary look at it.
Lucy, how do we work with carry forward on
Carry forward.
a VUSC budget?
Normally, what we would do is, the carry forward would be applied against, would be brought in and applied to this year's budget. So had we had a carry forward for this year, if I could clearly come up with an amount that I know will carry forward, I would apply it. So say I think we're gonna carry forward 20,000, I would reduce the assessments by 20,000. I would apply that right away before we assess anything. But because we only have 5,000 in legal fees in this current year's budget, right now, when I looked at it today, and I project salaries and benefits and all the fixed costs that I know today to the end of the year, I've only got 7% left of the budget. We've spent 93% of the budget. And salaries and benefits are all taken care of. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna have, I've got about 40,000 right now that can be applied to anything. We still have travel fees, we still have meeting dates, and we haven't spent any money on we haven't paid any legal fees yet, but we've incurred some costs. If I knew an amount, I would put it towards it. But this year, I don't think that I can set aside an amount and know for sure that I'm gonna carry forward. Next year, we will know. But this year's, I'm not putting through any carry forward until we have more solid numbers of what we can expect for legal fees and other costs.
So if we have any questions in the meanwhile for the next budget meeting, who do we forward those to?
You can email me or call me anytime.
Sure, thank you.
This one is very simple. This report is not very pretty, but you can see some of the details. If you look down through the middle, you'll see, like the Maine School Board Association MSD fees, I'm projecting $1,000 for that. I've got the 3 salaries and the associated benefits with them. Retirement, course tuition, the workers' comp, professional development conference. So you've got some of the details of what is included in this budget. It's a simple. This was the simplest one to do because it doesn't have facilities and special ed and whatnot. But it's still difficult to project when you don't have any history of this particular board and this particular. You know, once we move forward and we have a year or two under our belt, it's easier to project. But right now, it's a complete guess. So feel free to send me any questions as you see fit, or if you happen to be in the offices and stop in.
Thank you, Lucy.
In the meantime, that's where we're at.
Thank
Thank you.
Folks, that's all I have for you tonight, unless any of you have anything.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Second. Thank you. Josh and Gary tied. All those in favor?
I thought I was getting called to the principal's office.
Thank you all. You can leave the name tags and everything. I'll pick everything up. Take your water with you if you'd like, or leave it. Totally up to you. That's part of the perks of being a board member.
Bottled water.
It's free water.
I think that's my wife.
Take care, guys.
Okay, I don't know if we can all three hang on for a second. Two of us can. Okay.
But I know we get, what do you think it's, take our 50%?
That is. Here. Jacob Bernier.
I'll leave the pen.
Yeah. Jacob Bernier. Lisa Bernier. Wow. Then Andrew Gray.
I can't go anywhere anymore.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good week.
Given my orders,
This board
Monday.
votes to adopt it, and then that gets put
Mayor
into
said,
the
Tom,
vote that you do for the big budget, when you have the budget hearing. Yeah, the school budget.
And do you have a
Lung
copy
review.
of the budget that you can give me that way people looking at?
I
Take care
have
of
it
my
just draft right now.
or
I don't know that
sniffles,
we
she used up
typically don't give out drafts,
emergency.
it's gonna change. It
Can't
keeps being
breathe.
allowed.
At the next meeting?
You have to pump
When it's adopted, then we have it.
When do you adopt it?
We would be adopting it most
So,
likely in the next board meeting,
no more
unless
hunting
they
trips.
have questions about it.
I'll go in place, take pictures for you.
Yeah, I had to do a little
You know what, what got me? He had all that information when he was on the site selection committee.
We're just trying to rectify all the issues that alluded to all along, and it's kind of come to a head. We gotta get them straightened out.
Don, did you get my good side?
I did,
My
and
mom
of course.
Facebooked me, she goes, I see you.
No kidding. Yes, I know.
It's so
She
funny
just
how
got
things
on
go
that.
for a circle. Yeah, it's my first time.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is quite an experience, though.
It is a huge learning experience. I mean, between the site selection committee and boards and boards, so it's a lot of growth for me this past year. But it's good. It's all learning opportunities.
Is it cutting to your time at the office? Yeah, I mean, I look at that pile of paper, and it's not just reading it; it's making sense of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky. I have.
You have some
I
people
do.
to contact. That's great.
Well, it doesn't. I don't know. It's so weird. Like, you know how the job is. Like, I think about it when I wake up. So when I go in the morning, I know what I want to do. And I want to.
Yeah, you do.
But a lot of it is working with. Excuse me. Working with Chris Kyle is additional challenge.
Do they? I mean, something I never had to work with, and so. Do they affect your decisions, or
It does.
do they?
It does.
See you, Mr. Kent.
Take it easy.
Say hi to you.
No, for example, you know, Alex does things a little bit differently than I would do it, but then I have to rely on some of his experience because, you know, he knows some of this information than I do, but then the campuses are different, right? So there's some things I would rather do differently, and I'd like to just reach out to the, because I have a good relationship with
One of
them.
the many benefits.
You know, I feel like just having a gentleman's agreement, can we do this, so go ahead, and then some things I wish I had a policy for. Where Alex is like, well, you probably don't want a policy. I was like, well, I'd rather have something I can say, you know, you need to do this because you're screwing me up. I don't know how many times you probably had to interpret a circular change form and be like,
all the time.
all the time. And it's been challenging. That's one of my biggest challenges. And then working with the students, how we approach
Well,
it.
Curricular changes if you're part of the process. I mean, you get a feel of exactly what's going on and which direction that they're leaning, and you're not. I never tried to do an interpretation of it. I mean, it was.
You would go see them.
All the time. Sit. Okay, what are you trying to do? What do you want to do? And then you got to read what they're trying to do, and you do it.
Yeah, it was on the.
Right.
We took the catalog.
Did you?
Oh. Yeah. So this year is the first. It is a lot of work, but I. For example, I have to tie myself down for a little while is to take